Am I the a-hole for moving out at 16 and taking my brother after they stole my identity and refused to feed us? So, I need to know if I'm the a-hole here. Everything in my life fell apart last October when my uncle died. He raised me for 12 years and was basically my dad. He was the person who taught me how to tie my shoes, how to ride a bike, and how to believe that I actually mattered. When he passed away, it wasn't just a loss, it was like the entire foundation of my world was ripped out from under me. I went from a home where I was loved and fed to being shoved into this house. I've only been here for 4 months, but it's been a nightmare that feels like a lifetime of psychological weight. The adults I live with act like total babies. There's really no other way to put it. They are immature, petty, and completely lack any sense of responsibility toward the children in their care. The man is essentially a giant child. He throws actual temper tantrums if his favorite shirt isn't washed or if the TV remote isn't exactly where he left it. He stomps his feet and raises his voice over the smallest inconveniences. And the woman? She just repeats everything he says like an echo. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever witnessed. If he looks at me and says, "You're being lazy today," she will immediately follow up with, "Yeah, real lazy." If he says, "I'm sick of looking at your face," she pipes up, "Sick of it." It's like she doesn't have a single original thought or a shred of empathy that isn't first approved by him. The environment is incredibly stifling. I can't even go to the kitchen for a glass of water, even if it's the first time I've been in there all day, without her yelling that I'm always in the fridge. It's constant and petty. I've reached a point where I try to hold my thirst for hours just to avoid the confrontation. I'll sit in the room I share with my brother, my throat feeling like sandpaper, listening for their footsteps. If I hear them in the backyard or in the garage, I make a run for it. I'll grab a plastic cup, fill it as quietly as I can, and try to disappear back down the hallway. But she has this sixth sense for it. "What are you doing in there? I told you to stay out of that kitchen. You're always picking at things, always in the fridge." I wasn't even looking at the food. I just wanted to hydrate, but they treat the kitchen like a guarded vault that I'm constantly trying to heist. The worst part is the food. This is the part that makes my blood boil and my heart break for my brother. They go out and buy themselves and the other 4 kids full meals, but they don't buy anything for me and my brother. It's systematic. I'll hear the car pull into the driveway, and the smell of hot grease and seasoned meat will start to waft through the house. It's usually bags of burgers, or boxes of fried chicken, or large pizzas. They call their 4 biological kids into the dining room, and the sounds of wrappers crinkling and soda cans opening are like a physical assault when you haven't eaten a real meal in 2 days. We have to sit there and watch them eat real dinner while they tell us there is nothing for us. They don't even have the decency to let us stay in our room while they eat, they want us to see it. If I try to look away, the man will make a comment about how we should be grateful to even have a roof over our heads. My brother, who is younger and doesn't fully grasp how cruel this is, will sometimes stare at the fries or the crusts left on the plates. They'll look him right in the eye and say, "This isn't for you. This is for the family." As if we aren't standing right there. As if we aren't human beings with stomachs that hurt. A lot of nights, my brother and I just have to eat dry noodles or drink water for dinner because they refuse to feed us. I've become an expert at finding the cheapest, most ignored items in the back of the pantry. Usually, it's those 30-cent packets of ramen. We can't use the stove because that would mean being in the kitchen too long, so I take the dry block of noodles back to our room. I break it into small pieces so it lasts longer. I sprinkle the salty seasoning over the shards and we eat them like chips. It's loud, and it's pathetic, but it's all we have. On the nights when there aren't even any noodles left, we just drink glass after glass of tap water until our stomachs feel heavy enough to let us fall asleep. I'm 15, I have a 4.0 GPA, and I'm trying to focus on my future, but it's hard to study when you're starving. I spend my days at school trying to ignore the lightheadedness. I stay late in the library just because it's quiet and I can focus on my books without hearing the woman's voice echoing the man's insults. I know that my education is the only weapon I have. If I let my grades slip, I'm giving them exactly what they want, a reason to say I'm a failure. So, I study until my eyes burn. I memorize history dates and solve complex math equations while my stomach cramps. I'm fueling my brain with sheer spite because there's no food to fuel it with. On top of that, the man took my social security card and gave it to his cousin so they could use me on their income taxes. He didn't lose it, he literally gave my identity away to get money. I found this out because I was looking for my birth certificate in the file box they keep in the office area. I saw a photocopy of my SSN card tucked into a folder with a name I didn't recognize. When I confronted him, he didn't even flinch. He told me that since he's supporting me, he's entitled to the tax break, and since he couldn't claim me himself for some technical reason, he let his cousin do it for a fee. He sold my legal identity for a few $100 while I'm sitting in the other room eating dry noodles. They think because I'm 15 and don't have a job yet, they can keep me stuck here. They think I'm a child with no recourse and no understanding of the law. But I've been researching. Every spare second I have at school or the library is spent looking up labor laws, banking regulations, and emancipation requirements. I've been reading through legal forums and government websites. I found out that when I turn 16 in July, I can go to the bank and open my own account as the sole owner. In my state, there are specific provisions for minors in certain situations to have their own accounts without a parent's name attached, especially if they are working. I am counting down the days until that birthday. It's not a celebration of age, it's a countdown to a bank account. I'm going to start working 40 hours a week for $16 an hour and save everything. I've already looked at the local shops and warehouses. I don't care if I have to work from the second school ends until the sun comes up. I'll work weekends, holidays, whatever it takes. At $16 an hour, I can pull in over $2,500 a month. I've made a spreadsheet in my head. I know exactly how much will go to taxes, how much I need for food, and how much needs to be hidden away where they can never touch it. They think I'm a victim, but I'm becoming a machine. I already found a room for $899 a month where utilities are included, and I'm moving out in August. I found the listing on a local board. It's a simple room in a quiet house, and the landlord just wants someone who is quiet and pays on time. I've already started communicating with them, explaining that I'm a student with a full-time job. I'm moving out the second I have that first month's rent and security deposit saved. I won't even tell them I'm leaving. I'll just wait until they go out for one of their family dinners, and then I'll pack our 2 bags and go. I'm taking my brother with me so he doesn't have to deal with this anymore. That is the most important part of the plan. I see the way he looks at them, the way he's starting to believe that he's a burden. I won't let them break him. I will work 3 jobs if I have to so he can have a bed, a bowl of cereal, and a life where he isn't treated like an intruder. He's my responsibility now, far more than he is theirs. I'm starting paralegal studies in August too, because I want to know the law so nobody can ever use my documents or lie to me again. I want to be able to read a contract and know exactly where the loopholes are. I want to know how to file a police report for identity theft if I have to. I want to be the smartest person in any room I walk into, especially when that room involves people who think they can take advantage of me. I am going to turn my anger into a career. I'm saving for a $4,000 car and I'm never coming back. A used, reliable car means freedom. It means I can get my brother to school and myself to work without relying on anyone. Once I have those keys, I am cutting every single string. I'll change my number, I'll block them on everything, and I will disappear into a life where I am the one in control. They wanted to use me for a tax return. I'm going to use that experience to make sure I'm never used again. So, am I the a-hole for leaving and taking my brother with me because they won't feed us and they used my info for taxes? Update. First, I want to thank everyone for the responses on my last post. It really helped. I decided to make a report to CPS because of some new stuff that has happened, and it's been a total mess. Things didn't calm down after I posted. If anything, it felt like the situation got tighter, like every small thing we did was being watched and judged. There was no room to mess up, even when the mess up wasn't actually our fault. The other day my brother took the dogs out for about 50 minutes. They are meant to be outside dogs but they stay inside because of where we live. About an hour after he brought them back in, they pooped in their cage. It wasn't because we did anything wrong, they just think they can go anytime since they're outside dogs. My auntie saw it and called our uncle saying we're stupid and can't do anything right. It didn't stop there. She kept going on about it, dragging it out way past what it needed to be. It wasn't about the dogs anymore, it was about finding something to blame on us. My brother didn't even argue back. He just cleaned it up quietly while she stood there talking like he wasn't even trying. Half an hour later, my uncle texts me saying we need to take the dogs out for 2 hours while I'm trying to do my school work. I told him I could take them out for a bit but I couldn't do 2 hours. He just texted back telling me to make my brother do it, so I stopped responding. When I got back inside, Auntie asked me to change the baby, sweep and mop the whole house, and clean the bathroom. I told her I could change the baby but I needed a second for the rest because I was in the middle of a big test. She blew up and said she doesn't need any grown children living in her house and we can get out for all she cares. When Uncle got home later, he told us if we keep being disrespectful he's gonna have to put his paws on us. That kind of threat isn't new, but hearing it after everything else made it feel more real. It wasn't just talk anymore. The way he said it, it sounded like he was waiting for a reason. After that, the house felt different. We kept our heads down more than usual. Even moving around felt like it could set something off. The next day CPS actually came. My brother and I were on the same page about telling the truth. My uncle was hawking my brother down so he couldn't talk freely, but I managed to get to the back of the worker's car to tell her everything. That moment was the first time in a while that it felt like someone might actually listen. I didn't leave anything out. I told her about the food, the threats, the social security card, all of it. My brother didn't get that same space at first. He was being hovered over, like they were trying to control what he said just by being there. Eventually he got a chance to speak, but it was obvious they were trying to keep things contained. Even then, he stuck to the truth. After the worker left, everything got tense again. No one said much at first, but you could feel it building. The next morning, my uncle calls me while I'm on the bus saying we all need to talk because he thinks we're the reason CPS came. Then he spent the rest of the day texting me, cussing me out and threatening me. When we got home he just cursed at us more. He wanted to hit us, but he couldn't. It wasn't just anger. It felt like panic mixed in with it, like he knew something serious had been set in motion and he didn't like losing control. The messages kept coming, even after we were already home. It didn't matter if we answered or not. He just kept going. We didn't argue back. There wasn't any point. Anything we said would have made it worse, so we stayed quiet and let him run out of things to say. Around the same time, other stuff started happening that just added to everything. Small things that might not sound like much on their own, but stacked together it was clear it wasn't random. I also noticed she did laundry, but me and my brother didn't get any of our clothes back. I asked her where they were and she just lectured me about how we're disrespectful and don't clean, even though we clean everything. I texted my uncle and he said he didn't know where our damn clothes were and we better find them. Well, they left the house yesterday and we checked their room. Our clothes were balled up in the corner of their closet, already clean. They were literally hiding them from us. Seeing that confirmed a lot. It wasn't forgetfulness or things getting mixed up. It was intentional. There's no reason to take someone's clean clothes and hide them unless you're trying to make things harder for them. We put everything back where it belonged without saying anything. There was no point in bringing it up. It would have just turned into another argument where somehow we'd end up blamed again. After that, we started being more careful about everything we had. Keeping track of what little we own, making sure nothing else disappears. It's exhausting having to think like that all the time, but it's better than losing things and not knowing where they went. School has been harder to focus on with all of this going on, but I haven't let my grades drop. That's one thing I've held on to no matter what's happening here. It's one of the only things that feels like it's actually mine. At this point, we're mostly staying out of their way and counting down the days. We don't ask for anything unless we absolutely have to. We handle what we can ourselves. It's not ideal, but it keeps things from escalating as much. The good news is that at the end of this month, my brother and I are going back to our old city to stay with my other aunt who I actually consider to be my mom. Update 2. First, I want to thank everyone for the responses on my last post. It really helped. We left for my aunt's house like we said we would, and we didn't go back after that. That part actually went through exactly how it was supposed to. There wasn't anything that delayed it or changed it last minute. When it was time, we went, and once we were out, that was it. There wasn't anything left there for us, and we didn't have a reason to go back. Getting to my aunt's place didn't feel like stepping into something new, it felt more like stepping out of something that had been constant for too long. The difference was obvious right away, but not in a dramatic way. It was just the absence of everything that had been happening before. No tension over small things, no constant comments, no feeling like every movement needed to be watched or explained. At first, it was just us being there like we planned. But that didn't last long in that form. It didn't turn into a situation where we had to count days or figure out what came next. She told us we could stay, and that was it. It wasn't framed as temporary or conditional. That part settled early, and once it did, everything else became easier to deal with. We didn't have to rush into finding a place or follow through with the plan I had about moving out on my own right away. That plan was still there in the back of my mind, but it wasn't something that needed to happen immediately anymore. Staying made more sense than forcing another big move while everything else was still ongoing. CPS followed through again after we left. It didn't stop when we were no longer in that house. They continued with what had already been started. We weren't being pulled into constant meetings or anything like that, but there were follow-ups. It was clear that it wasn't something they were just going to drop. From what we were told, it moved forward as a neglect case. It wasn't treated like a one-time report or something that could be dismissed. The things we had already said were enough for them to keep going with it. At that point, it wasn't something we had to manage anymore. It shifted into something being handled on their end. We weren't involved in every step, and we didn't need to be. We gave our statements, and that was enough. After that, updates came in a way that let us know it was still active without pulling us back into the middle of it. There hasn't been any contact from them since we left. No messages, no calls, nothing passed through anyone else. It's been completely quiet from that side. Whether that's because they've been told not to reach out or because of everything else going on, we don't know, and it hasn't affected anything on our end. Living here has been consistent. That's the main difference. There aren't constant problems being created out of nothing, and nothing turns into something bigger than it needs to be. We don't have to think about everything we're doing or adjust ourselves just to avoid setting something off. Food is there. That's not something we have to plan around anymore or deal with being told there isn't anything for us. It's handled without it becoming a situation. That alone changed more than I expected it would. Our things stay where we put them. Nothing disappears, nothing gets moved, and we don't have to keep track of everything just in case something goes missing. It sounds basic, but after dealing with the opposite for months, it stands out. We've been able to settle into a routine without it turning into a problem. School, coming home, handling what we need to do, and that's it. There isn't anything layered on top of that turning normal things into issues. School itself has been easier to deal with. My grades didn't drop when everything was going on before, but it took a lot more effort to keep them there. Now it doesn't feel like I'm balancing everything at once just to stay on track. It's just school. There's also more consistency with it. Before, even trying to sit down and focus could turn into something else depending on what was happening around us. Now there's nothing interrupting that. It's straightforward. My brother adjusted faster than I expected. He's not as quiet, and he doesn't act like he has to stay out of the way all the time. He moves around like he's comfortable being there, and he doesn't hesitate over small things. He's not constantly watching what he's doing like it might cause a problem. That shift didn't happen all at once, but it didn't take long either. It became noticeable pretty quickly. He's also more present in everything. Before, it felt like he was always holding back, even in normal situations. That's not happening anymore. It's not something he talks about, but it shows in how he acts. My aunt has been steady through all of this. She didn't turn it into something overwhelming, but she didn't ignore it either. The more she found out about what had been happening, the more serious she got about it. She's upset about how we were treated. That hasn't changed, and it hasn't faded over time. If anything, it became clearer to her the more details came out. She didn't brush it off or treat it like it wasn't a big deal. At the same time, she didn't let that turn into something we had to deal with constantly. She handled it without making the house feel tense. It's clear where she stands, but it doesn't come up in a way that disrupts everything else. She made it clear we're not going back there. That hasn't been presented as an option at any point. Everything here is set up for us to stay, and that hasn't changed. We didn't have to move into our own place like I originally planned. That plan isn't gone, but it's not something that needs to happen right now. Staying here makes more sense than forcing another move while everything is still settling. There's no constant pressure anymore. No feeling like something is about to turn into a problem, no waiting for something small to become something bigger. It's just normal. That's been the biggest difference out of everything. It's not about one big change, it's about the absence of all the small things that kept building up before. At this point, everything is steady. There's nothing ongoing that we have to manage from that situation. CPS is handling what they need to handle, and we're not being pulled back into it. We're just here, and things are normal. That's where things are now.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update.